Can you hear me?
Welcome. Welcome to the Q&A session, QuHarrison. I'm Adrian, and we have a lot of people interested in this Q&A session. Not so many questions until now, but I'm hoping that they will come. Let's begin with the first question from the audience. Let me read it. We all expect a new big sport tech thing, which through engagement will bring new value to the sport, since linear TV, but also existing applications have failed to do so. Is it NFT or something else, this new big sport tech thing?
I think that's a great question. I think NFTs have the ability to fractionalize the way athletes and sports organizations can get involved with their fan experience. So when I think about the fan experience, it's one that needs to be digitized, right? Oftentimes, if you're a diehard sports fan, some of your most notable moments outside of the actual games themselves and the stadiums, it comes from these digital destinations, whether that be memes, whether that be communities, whether that be commentary. We have all that stuff today, but I think it's harder for athletes to get involved at a level where they have true skin in the game, right? So in order to really participate, they have to own one of the platforms. They have to be the subject of conversation and have a product associated with that. NFTs allow for the diversification and just, I think, a little bit more liquidity on that side, especially if you're, not a star athlete like a LeBron James, where obviously it's easier for you to get some of the deals that you could land yourself. So I think that this actually is good for the sports industry. I think on the tech side, it is a tech component, but I think it's not necessarily a new way to practice or a new way to work out in some futuristic way. It's more of a way to help fans not only be more closer to the experience, and you see this with NBA Top Shot, right? Like with NBA Top Shot, it's an NFT collectibles platform where fans get to trade and collect their favorite moments from NBA games. They get the highlights. Before, a few years ago, that wasn't even remotely possible. You had to make a mixtape of ESPN clips, and you had to record the segment and write it to some form of archival record, right? Whether that be a VHS tape, a DVD, or even MP4s, and string that together on YouTube. That was the way you collected highlights. And there weren't a lot of people that did that, right? There were definitely the video editors and the organizations that, saw value in doing that because that gave them exposure to the industry. But for your average fan, that wasn't even remotely possible. Now, in an era of NFTs, that's a rudimentary use case. And so there's still a lot to be unlocked on that fan experience. And I think that this is where NFTs sit. And I think that there is more room as we get to universes like the metaverse, for not only the fan experience to change, but also the way sports organizations interact, right? Like we saw the impact of just jerseys. So in the real life, whether it be a football jersey or a soccer jersey or, a basketball jersey, these are things that people take pride in owning and value, and it shows like their affiliation to something. I think we'll get where metaverse will be a thing.
Very, very interesting answer. Another question from the audience, from Frank Hellman. Hello, our company is in the business of selling domains. Do you see a possibility combining NFT with domains? And does it possibly make sense participating from further resales of domains? I'm speaking of domains like .de or .com.
Yeah, I think that there probably will be some type of standard that's pushed out where you create an interoperability so that the traditional domains like a .today, a .co, or a .marketing all have the opportunity to interface with some type of blockchain interface. That could be Ethereum, that could be a new blockchain that is cross blockchain. I think if I were in domains, I'd be exploring that because the case study is already there, right? Like even in the presentation I just did, I talked about blockchain domains, and that's on the the ENS standard. But if you go a little bit deeper and just see what's out there, you'll realize that it's a greenfield market, and there's a lot of opportunity in a lot of different segments.
Good. And now a question from me. Apart Ethereum, what are other blockchains that could become big as support for the NFT market?
Well, that's a great question. Polygon is a blockchain that, everyone's talking about. It's definitely, I think, a clear number 2. Obviously, there's the main Ethereum blockchain. Then you have a few others like Flow. So Flow is the blockchain that, just had the big announcement with Google, where they're going to be integrating that into Google Cloud and offering, some crazy services there. And there's so many blockchains, right? Like to answer this question in its entirety, and we might be here for a while, but those are 3 that I'm definitely watching. And I think, right now at this point, there is the Ethereum blockchain. And I understand the caveats that people are saying that it's too expensive and this whole gas conundrum that we're in. Yeah. That stuff will get figured out. I think, participating, even though it's expensive right now, for the true innovators, they'll figure it out, right? Because if you don't do it, somebody else will. And it's never going to be as cheap as it is today to get started in this stuff. And a great example I can point to that is, imagine starting a website in 1998, right? Well, your startup costs were probably not that atrocious, right? Like if you wanted to build an app in 1998, maybe you spent, $30,000, $50,000 on the high end, right? Even like the biggest companies at the time were only throwing probably 250,000 in. And I say that and you're like, oh, those are still large numbers. Well, think about it today. If you want to build an app today, to do it well and to get scale, you're looking at a $2 million expenditure. So over time, this stuff gets more complicated. It becomes harder to do, and some of the easy lifts and opportunities disappear. So price, I would not let that stop me right now. I know that gas conundrum is a really big issue, and it's something that we all have to kind of figure out how we're going to exist in that world. But it's a problem that a lot of developers are working on.
Great. I have several questions from the audience. Adrian Nemțu, do you see an increasing supply for NFTs investment funds similar to Bitcoin funds, so that less knowledgeable persons can participate in this market as well?
Yeah, for sure. I think that we're going to see funds both on the private wealth side and just kind of private equity, like probably not as big as PE, but I think PE-esque in the sense that they will be investing in opportunities related to NFTs, the technology behind NFTs, and just looking at the NFT market at its biggest, from its broadest perspective, saying like, hey, how can I enter this market and see true value? I think the next thing we'll see is probably a type of index fund. We're already starting to see those in crypto, but in NFTs, because there will be real NFTs that have value and retain that. And we're starting to see the case studies being true, right? Like if you see the Curio cards, even with the recent drop over the last few days, the market has relatively stayed unchanged for Curio. Just the prices of Ethereum has changed. So that creates a negative sentiment amongst the holders that are only checking for price. But if you're looking at that baseline value as how much ETH and like what is the delta between yesterday's ETH and today's ETH, if there's zero change there, you're in a really good spot.
Okay, a completely different question right now from Henry Eliezer Lopez Munoz. Do you think the music business can be translated to NFTs in the future?
Yeah, I think that's the question that everybody is asking themselves. It's obviously that's who's going to be the Spotify of NFTs? And the music industry has probably one of the most storied backgrounds with technology, especially emerging technologies. If you go back and you remember from the Walkman to the CD, right? There was a period of time where you had both cassette tapes, an inferior archival medium, and CDs, like a very futuristic laser-based archival medium, it coexisting and moving similar units at the same time. Like they had to phase the cassette out. And then the same thing happened when you had the CD and then the MP3 and what would also go on to become iPods and MP3 players. They coexisted for a long time. And if you look at its more internet and digital brethren, I remember the era of Napster and LimeWire when things were very illegal. And then we got to a point where, you know, like almost 10 years after that, Spotify would come on and do the same thing, but do it in a more formalized fashion. So I say this to say that music is one of the few industries that always adopts new technology fairly early, but sometimes the adoption the first time around isn't for the benefit of the music industry or necessarily the consumer. So I would say with NFTs, we're probably going to see a very similar transition. We're going to have some Verge artists that just break through this stuff. We've already seen it with Tory Lanez. He has an NFT that he just dropped. It was an album, sold it for $1. The guy made like $1 million in a day or two, just selling out of these NFTs. Yeah, and you know that's a hip hop album selling all on the blockchain. We're gonna see similar case studies like that, but in at large, in aggregate, I think their NFT marketplace still has a long way to go before we see like a Spotify evolve. And I think some of the contracts behind these tokens need to evolve and be more, I would say, more favorable to a music, someone that has a bunch of artists and is in the music industry. Like, so we don't have yet, I think, the smart contract to create the world that we all are envisioning as it relates to royalties and music and, you know, the distribution of rights. And I think it's a very cool use case that we all can see, but we need developers to really bring that to life.
Yeah, artistically NFTs, because there's another question. Are NFTs only artistically related? If not, what suggestions can you give us, especially to software developers? Can they develop anything that can be actually valued as an NFT?
Yeah, I think so. Right now, art and NFTs are having its moment because this is the first time, I think, in a long time, the art industry is seeing, like, you know, convergence with the tech industry. We've never really seen that before. Like Christie's and Sotheby's wasn't selling, you know, startups. It wasn't like Amazon launched at Christie's and raised its first seed round through a Sotheby's auction. That's what we're seeing with NFTs. And so art's getting all the hype, but definitely the utility in NFTs. If you're a programmer, you know, you can build applications and sell your source code as an NFT, right? Like you can, it would be, you know, again, these are very early on concepts in examples, but an NFT is a smart contract. A smart contract can contain whichever variables you want, and there can be dynamic properties to those contracts as well. I think I would compare this era of NFTs very similar to the first era of APIs, when an API just about 10 to 15 years ago was just a database registry, right? Like you literally were just pulling information and querying it from a database. And like, you know, even look at, when you think about the fundamentals of JSON, that's really what it is, right? It's like you're saying this item is here, go get that item and check and see if it's changed. Here recently, last, I would say 8 to 7 years or 7, 8 years, we've gotten to a point where those APIs have expanded in their functionality so much so that it's no longer just a nice way to go query a database. And NFTs will be very similar, right? Like right now we're in art, but as time goes on and the contracts evolve, we'll get to a point where if you're an artist, you might even be considered limited, because this is really a developer's game.
Yeah, and switching from the digital world towards again the physical world. Another question is from Sabol. Hi, I'm new to NFTs. My questions might be ridiculous. I don't understand the concept of those NFTs that represent physically existing objects. For example, fashion collections. Can you tell more about this?
Yeah. You and me both. I think that no one's done that right. There's a lot of people attempting, and I'm not gonna I'm not gonna say that they're like failure is necessary in order to breed success, right? There's a lot of great companies, a lot of the people that we've come to know and love. They took risk where the odds were against them, and it worked out in their favor, and we refer to them as geniuses, right? And the people that take the risks, the same risk, and the odds are against them, and they fail, we look at them as crazy or as just, you know, subpar entrepreneurs. And in reality, the same is true for both. Like the qualities are the same. Like if you want to be successful or you want to be a failure, you've got to take kind of the same amount of risk. And it just matters about how lucky you get and, you know, how well you execute against that. But for the people that are trying to create an NFT and tie that to a physical object, I think there's still a lot of room to be explored. And I think that the hardest part is if the physical object changes, what happens to the NFT? I think we will probably get to a world where there will be two items. Maybe everything in the physical world does have an NFT equivalent, but that NFT equivalent is a forever, like however this object looked at that time. And when we NFT'd it, we agree that that is how we forever want to remember it digitally. Whereas in the real world, that object will get, you know, dirty. It will get germs on it. It might get destroyed. It might, you know, be plastered somewhere. And so we have to kind of think of it as like in these digital worlds, their thing will stay unscathed forever. In the physical world, there's some type of risk for just owning an item.
So talking a little bit more about the value of NFTs, what drives more their value? Especially not today, but in the mean term, their appreciation, their art value, or most likely their utility as part of their unlockables, if you want, as part of a larger strategy?
Great question. I think to value an NFT, it is going to be solely based on the community that you have behind that NFT. And that community, I'm not saying this to say, oh, you have a social media following, you've got a community. No, I'm saying like, who is your crypto collectors? Who are the wallets that are interacting with your smart contracts, ultimately your NFTs? And how do you communicate with those people? Right now, we're seeing a lot of case studies on, you know, what Discord communities look like and people sharing teams and engineers talking to engineers. We're going to get beyond that point, and you're going to be able to just walk into the real world and people will be able to sign up and buy and collect your NFTs. That probably will take 4 to 5 years time. But the people that are thinking really deeply about their crypto community will have the most valuable crypto projects. And we're already seeing it. Like Larva Labs, the team behind CryptoPunks, they have been doing this since 2016, 2017. So they have been building that community for a long time. Guess what? It's not that crazy to see them sell a punk then for $250,000 when they're in their fifth or fourth year in the game where they're working on a project. I think looking at that and also looking at it from a company or an artist perspective, you know, Mike Winkleman, or better known as Beeple, he has the largest NFT transaction to date, clocking in almost at $69 million or a little over that. And in that transaction, he sold this piece called Everydays. And Everydays is the aggregate or the combination of all of his work and efforts over the past 14, 15 years. And it's a big collage. It's a huge file. It looks, if you don't understand what it is, it just looks like a bunch of images together. But okay, when you know what it is, you're like, this is interesting. Well, what's interesting about that is this artist who largely hadn't been able to collect in any notable form for a long period of time was now available and accessible in the open market. And that was 15 years of building a community, right? So he had been marketing to his community and nurturing his community for 15 years. If you're a business, an organization, or any group really that is thinking about getting into any of these crypto tokens or assets, you really should be asking yourself, what are we doing for the crypto community? What are we doing to show up to the community? How are we providing value? And how are we building our own crypto communities? The same way you nurture an email list, and that's how you get sales or have retention for your product or service. is the same way you're going to have to think about, just Ethereum wallets and how you interact and how you talk to those people. And I don't think it's a one-for-one. I don't think, you can just send an email and see a lot of people buy your product. It will be true in some cases, but not all.
Good. Let me see another question, because there are several questions in one. Still about the value of NFTs. What are some KPIs in NFTs that I can guide my investment upon?
Man, that's a great question. I wish I had that, because I'd be rich too. Even I, who spent a lot of time in NFTs, I don't know all the answers there. What I can say is the things that I look at when I look at NFTs and potentially want to collect them is most notably the team. Has this team done anything in crypto? Is it original? The idea? Do I see it working? And it's so early that expertise here can still be built up within a period of 3 to 6 months. Meaning that if you just showed up and spent some time looking and reviewing all the projects that are coming out and just went deep in the things that you didn't understand, you could probably catch up and then have a very unique view and perspective of the market. And it's just right now, it's just about seeing things that other people don't see, or being early in spaces and waiting for other people to see what you saw. Or if you're an evangelist of some sorts, being able to talk about the project and why you think it's notable. Those are the things that are working as far as value creation. But again, it's about community, because you need someone on the other side to believe that, and then collectively congregate and make that value, or I guess fortify the value there. The one last thing I'll add to this, as it relates to just kind of learning about NFTs, I wrote a book. It's called the NFT Handbook. I recommend you go check that out. It's on Amazon or your favorite bookseller. What I would say is, in that book, I kind of give you all of the knowledge that I know about NFTs, and I break it down in a way where a non-technical person can really sit there and understand some of these very in-depth technical concepts.
Not a question. I'm not here to question anything. Just wanted to say that you are freaking amazing.
Oh, thank you so much.
A comment from Andrea Purghe. Now a question. Is it, because everybody's learning here, is there an exchange or platform where you can follow the size and importance of that community as a main driver to the value of NFTs?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's a site called Rarity Tools that will show you all the heuristics regarding the rarity of the 10. If it's a 10K project, it'll show you all the elements of what NFTs will be rare. For judging the community, the best way to do it is, one, to do it yourself. Don't trust anybody's word or judgment. Do it yourself. But the cheat code there is to go to Discord. So a lot of these projects that are popping up have Telegram groups and or Discords. Discord can be a little unnerving. So I'd recommend, turning off the notifications and just going there and checking it on your own speed. Otherwise, you're going to just be distracted forever and you might not get any work done. But go and see what they're talking about. Go and see what questions have the community in awe, or what things are happening in the real world that is creating even more belief. Because these are real world, I would say, psychological experiments where you're getting to see for the first time human psychology being tested amongst these new emerging ideas and trends. Okay.
Some questions are related to the business model for NFT, and I will combine them with this. Can you expand a little bit about unlockables? Because perhaps not everybody knows that in an NFT can have unlockables, and that how can you use them as a business? For example, if you sell something or...
No, I think NFTs are, for the first time, what you see is not what you get. So if I buy an iPhone, Apple has to be very transparent on what I'm getting up front, and then I get said iPhone. And that's relevant because tomorrow, the new iPhone comes out. And so 2 weeks before they release it and get it to all the retailers, they have a big event and they say, hey, this is what the new iPhone can do. This is what we changed. Here's the internals. Here's the new battery life. And based on that, transparency is what ultimately leads people to make a purchase or just say, I'm going to wait to the next iPhone. With NFTs, you can be transparent up front, but you could also say, hey, I also have left something very exclusive for the buyer. And if you own this NFT in your wallet, you'll get to see that. I'm not going to talk about it too much beyond that, but just know it's a very special experience or movement. We saw this early on in tech, back if you remember software. Software used to be sold in a fashion where they would show you all the things, but you wouldn't be able to unlock a certain part, or you wouldn't be able to get the full access until you purchased a key code, or you went to the store and bought the CD and the disc and got the activation code out the box. I think NFTs will probably follow a similar trajectory in the sense that, like, in the early days, it's going to be like these fringe use cases for unlockables. I think gaming, again, is probably going to be the first one that we all come to know and love. And then after that, we're going to go into this whole concept of just using the unlockable as a value sell. So people will be saying, hey, I have this unlockable item associated with my NFT. But if you buy the NFT, you'll get to know what it means. Very, very early. I think it's really going to be cool to see which businesses and industries take heed to that and really make that a norm. But the technology is there, and I don't see that being depreciated anytime soon.
Okay. One last question, and it's a very interesting question. What do you think about the combination between NFTs and smart glasses when they will evolve?
Oh, wow. I love this question because for those that don't know, Facebook just announced a new product with Ray-Bans. I don't remember the name of the product, but
it looks like a Ray-Bans.
Yeah, it looks like Ray-Bans, but I forgot the name. This is probably not good for the Facebook marketing team. Damn. I'm a techie and I forgot the name of the product, but
me too.
they have smart glasses. They're very similar to the Snapchat spectacles in the sense that they allow you to capture the world around you and then take that to your digital destinations that Facebook owns. So your Facebook timeline, your Instagram, and your WhatsApp communities. And obviously, I think it's inevitable that at some point that these glasses are going to get upgrades where they're going to be able to see different filters and different digital items on display. This version that Facebook just announced doesn't, but shortly after that announcement, Xiaomi, which is a big Chinese company, or they make all types of consumer tech products, they announced their version of a smart glass. And in their version, they actually do have a lens. So you can see like GPS directions, right, per se. It kind of reminds me of Google Glass way back when, if you remember that. Yeah. NFTs probably could be unlockable. You could have a marketplace of NFTs that unlock experiences in these glasses. That's actually thinking very, very futuristic. But if you had like an app store-ish NFT marketplace where people could buy different upgrades or different mods to their glasses, it would be very nerdy. But I mean, why not?
Yeah, and especially in autonomous cars, then you will have on the windscreen.
Oh, that would be that. Yeah, I think honestly, I had said this before. I think on another podcast or on NFTQT.com, but cars are so digital now. Like the dash is digital. I have a heads-up display in my car. Like there's just so many like nooks and crannies. So much so that like if the tech goes wrong, the car doesn't work. But there should be NFTs where I can purchase them and it changes all the sounds in my car. Or it changes the display. It gives me an upgrade, and this is not the standard base level OS, but more so a way for me to personalize that operating system without interfering with the functionality of the vehicle. Because I think that in some capacity, cars have to be vanilla so that we all know how to understand and operate them, right? If every car you got in had a different core functionality, or like you had to press this button to start the engine and then lift this switch, that wouldn't be good for any of us, because then we'd have to learn more ways to drive vehicles. And, people stopped driving manual cars in the US a long time ago.
Yeah.
Hey, what they say, history repeats itself. So maybe they will have a car that has NFT upgrades and it's like a manual car. We have to press a button that just, you know.
I'm looking forward to see this. I believe a lot in customization and even owing that customization. If okay, that was an incredible talk. I would like to ask you to remind people that they can read something that you wrote.
It's a book. Yes.
Please.
So I have a book. It's coming out
because it's
October
important.
12th. Yeah, I got you. Yeah, so I have a book coming out October 12th. It's called the NFT Handbook. It's being published by Wiley, and it's going to be available at all major booksellers near you and also Amazon.com. And the book is called the NFT Handbook. In that book, I talk about the easiest ways to buy, sell, and collect NFTs. And what it effectively does is teaches you how to do how to do those things I just described in a way that isn't, limiting. Like it's not going to, I'm not going to give you bias because you don't understand the technical components behind NFTs. Like, I think NFTs are going to grow not because a techie picked it up and took the contract further or said, this is what I'm going to do with the NFT. I think we're going to need to see, an influx of musicians, artists, creators, engineers, business people look at NFTs and say, hey, can we do this? That's how technology has always evolved. Look at Apple Computer. Steve Jobs was more into calligraphy than he was, programming. And, when you have that visionary mindset, and you pair them with someone that knows how to, get the desired output, it almost creates the super team that we need. And I think that's what's going to ultimately propel NFTs. And so I wrote this book to hopefully inspire those true visionaries out there.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much, QuHarrison. And have fun writing again on this subject.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.